Can you really crush a modern Grandmaster in just about 20 moves by playing in the style of the great Paul Morphy? That's exactly what 65-year-old Efim Geller does in today's attacking masterpiece. His opponent Alexey Dreev chooses a popular theoretical line, but with Morphy-like play, Geller refutes the entire variation and wins the brilliancy prize. This game proves that Morphy's attacking spirit still lives on in modern chess. So let's dive into the game and learn how to keep your opponent under relentless pressure. Geller starts with e4 and Dreev replies with the French defense e6, d4, d5, attacking the e4 pawn, so white must do something about it. He can either capture on d5, exchanging the pawns, or he can push the pawn forward, or he can play knight c3, defending the pawn, which is one of the main lines, or, as is the case in our game, knight d2, the Tarrasch variation, defending the pawn. Black could have attacked white's center with c5 right away, which is one of the main lines, and in this case, after exchanging on d5, the white bishop usually invades the b5 square, and it seems that black wanted to avoid it, so instead of immediate c5, first black plays a6, taking the b5 square under control and preventing bishop b5. And only after Geller develops the king's knight does black play c5, attacking the center. Geller exchanges on d5, letting black solve one of the main problems of the French defense, the problem of the bad bishop, which is restricted by its own pawn. Black recaptures with a pawn, now the bishop's diagonal is open. On the other hand, in his turn, white gets a chance to isolate the d5 pawn. He could have captured on c5 right away, which was perfectly playable, isolating the d5 pawn and getting a great blockading d4 square for his knights. However, in this case, black could have captured on c5 just in one move, without losing a tempo. Bishop takes c5. And the pawn, of course, is also strong, besides being weak, because it controls the important squares. Anyway, it seems that Geller didn't feel like letting his opponent capture on c5 just in one move, so he starts the fight for a tempo. He's going to capture on c5 only after black develops his bishop. So first he develops his own bishop. Of course, developing the bishop on d3 doesn't make any sense, because that would let black push the pawn forward with a tempo, kicking out the bishop from d3. For this reason, Geller develops the bishop on e2. And now, if black develops his dark-squared bishop, then Geller would capture and black would be forced to move the already developed bishop one more time. So black would lose a tempo. And it seems that black didn't want to lose a tempo, so instead of bishop c5, he pushes the pawn forward, grabbing more space on the queen side. And the pawn is quite strong. It controls the important squares and puts pressure on white's position, restricting him. Besides that, now white won't be able to capture on c5 anymore, after which white would have got a great blockading square for his knights. So now this square, the white pawn will remain on this square. And now black is ready to develop his bishop. However, as you can see, black has made a lot of pawn moves. He hasn't developed any of his pieces and his king is still in the center, while white has already developed 3 pieces, and with his next move, Geller castles kingside. And it might seem dangerous for black, but this line was very well known in the opening theory, and it was considered perfectly playable for black, because the center is closed. And now black finally develops his bishop, now that white cannot capture on c5. Dreev develops the bishop, and black needs just 2 moves. He just needs to develop his knight and castle kingside, after which he would solve all his problems. But let's see what happens next. First, Geller plays b3, attacking black's strongest pawn, threatening to capture it, winning a pawn. So black must do something about it. And the best thing black can do is simply to capture on b3, letting go of his strong c4 pawn. And in this case, after a takes b, black just plays knight e7, next move he castles, and white has only a slight advantage. But it's understandable that black didn't want to let go of his pawn, so he plays b5, defending it and continuing his expansion on the queen side. So this was still all the theory. Geller attacks the pawn chain. So black has a pawn chain, so Geller attacks it, a4, threatening to capture on b5, after which black won't be able to recapture as his rook would fall. The a8 rook is unguarded, so black must do something about this threat. And there are two moves that make sense for black. The first one is c3, counter-attacking the knight, and it seems that it isn't clear what white should do. The knight doesn't have any good squares. If it retreats to b1, black would, attacking c3, black would play b4, defending his pawn, and the knight on b1 would be trapped. So what should white do after c3? If you want to find the answer, you can watch another game by Geller, which we examined last week. So if you didn't see it, I will link it at the end of this video, and you will get a chance to watch a fantastic game where Geller came up with one of the most shocking queen sacrifices in chess history. But let's return to our today's game. Instead of c3 in today's game, black played bishop b7, which is another move that makes sense. White was threatening to capture on b5, but now that the black rook is defended, if white captures, black can simply recapture. For this reason, instead of capturing on b5, Geller captures on c4. And after black recaptures, we have reached our first critical position. This position was known in a theory. So black has made a lot of pawn moves and fell behind in development. His king is still in the center. However, he just needs two moves. He needs to move his knight and castle, solving all his problems. So if white wants to punish his opponent for falling behind in development, he must play energetically. And you can pause the video and try to find how Geller does that. So, in order to launch a devastating attack on the black king while he is still in the center, Geller sacrifices a piece. He sacrifices a piece on the strongest square, on the c4 square. But he can capture on c4 with the knight or the bishop, and at first sight knight takes c4 looks more natural, because after d takes c, bishop takes c4, so white gets 2 pawns for the piece, and his bishop is quite strong, attacking the weak f7 pawn. And white also is threatening to invade the g5 square, attacking the f7 for the second time. However, this doesn't create serious threats for the black king. The only threat is knight g5, but black can play h6, preventing it, and there is nothing white can do to prevent the black king from castling. For example, after rook e1 check, knight e7, next move black will castle, and the position is evaluated as equal by the engine. So instead of knight takes c4, Geller captures on c4 with the bishop, sacrificing the bishop. And let's see what's the difference. After d takes c and knight takes c4, white has an immediate threat of knight takes d6 check, queen takes d6, then rook e1 check, knight e7, and bishop a3, which would attack the black queen, which will be on the d6 square, and after she retreats, the e7 knight will fall. So white would simply win a piece and will get a winning position. So what should black do? If he makes the most natural move, knight e7, hoping to castle kingside next move, then white again will capture on d6, then he will develop the bishop with the tempo, attacking the queen, and after she retreats, let's say to d7, white would develop the rook again with the tempo, threatening to capture on e7, attacking the knight for the second time, and there is nothing black can do. If he defends the knight, knight c6, again he is ready to castle, but white has a strong move, knight e5, attacking the queen, threatening to capture on c6, followed by rook takes e7. So black has no choice, he must capture the knight, and after rook takes e5, there is nothing black can do to defend the knight. White is winning. For this reason, after knight takes c4, instead of knight e7, Dreev retreats his bishop to e7. And rook e1, of course, follows. So, what should black do now? Of course, he would love to castle. But if he plays knight f6, which looks like the natural move, black is ready to castle, then again bishop a3 would follow, attacking the bishop for the second time, and there is nothing black can do to save the piece. For example, after knight c6, which defends the bishop is pinned. So the knight, which is defended by the bishop, can invade d6 with a check. Next move, the bishop would fall and white is winning. So, for this reason, knight f6 doesn't work. The best thing the knight can do is to remain on g8, because from g8 it defends the bishop. So, black plays queen c7 instead, developing the queen with a tempo, attacking the knight, and also moving her away from d8. So, castling kingside looks problematic, so maybe black also considers castling queenside instead. And we have reached another critical position. So, what should white do now? His knight is under attack. Let's say if he moves the knight, and the only square, the only square it makes sense to move the knight on is e5. But after knight e5, the rook's file would be closed, and black this time can play knight f6, and bishop a3 doesn't work because the rook isn't really attacking the bishop, so black can simply castle, solving all his problems. So, moving the knight doesn't give white any advantage. What else can he do? If he defends the knight with queen e2, also increasing the pressure on the e-file, then black can play knight d7. The rook's way to c8 is open, so next move black is going to play rook c8, developing the rook with a tempo, threatening to capture the knight again, and getting some counterplay. And if, let's say, white plays bishop a3 in this position, increasing the pressure on the bishop, attacking it for the third time, threatening to capture it, black can simply castle queenside. And his king would be in a relative safety, his bishop would be unpinned, and if white captures, that would only be in black's favor, because black would develop his knight, he would finish his development, the knight is heading to d5, and if white captures the knight, then the queen stops defending the c4 knight, so black would get the piece back, and white's attack fades away, and black remains with extra material. So what should white do? It isn't clear after queen c7. The knight is under attack. On the other hand, white must play energetically if he wants to exploit the fact that his opponent has fallen behind in development. So you can pause the video and try to find Geller's brilliant idea. For attack to be successful, all pieces must take part in it. So, the piece which isn't doing anything at the moment is the rook. So, rook b1, leaving the knight under attack. Creating an immediate threat of rook takes b7, queen takes b7, knight d6, fork, winning the queen. For this reason, black cannot develop his knight, so he cannot neither the king's knight nor the queen's knight. So the best thing he can do is to capture on c4. And white immediately gets the piece back. and now his rook, which just 2 moves ago wasn't doing anything on a1, has turned into one of the best white pieces. It has invaded the 7th rank. Knight c6, developing the knight, and we have reached another critical position. Black is ready to castle queenside and partially solve his problems. The king will be much better placed on the queenside than in the center. And if white makes the most natural move, d5, pushing the pawn forward with a tempo, attacking the knight, then black would castle queenside anyways. Attacking the rook, pinning the pawn, so white cannot capture on c6, and both the rook and the d5 pawn would be under attack, and black would survive. So what should white do? You can pause the video one more time and try to find Geller's counterintuitive move that increases the pressure on black. So the knight retreats to d2, a seemingly passive move, but actually it's a great move. The knight also has moved away from f3, so it isn't defending the d4 pawn. Black can capture it. So what's the idea behind knight d2? The idea is to close the d file. The knight is standing between the rook. Potentially the rook might move on d8 after black castles queenside. So the knight is standing between the black rook and the white queen. And with a tempo, the black queen is under attack. That means white will be able to push the d pawn forward now that the d file is closed. So if black, let's say, captures on a4, then now that the d file is closed, white can push the pawn forward, attacking the knight, and also threatening d6, attacking the pinned bishop. And black's position collapses because castling queenside this time doesn't work. Attacking the rook, but now that the knight closes the d file, white can simply capture on c6, regaining the piece. The material is equal, but the king's safety, just compare the black king who is in trouble and absolutely safe white king, so white is winning. For this reason, after Geller's move knight d2, as white is threatening not just to capture the queen, but after she retreats, white is threatening to push the pawn forward to d5 with a tempo, attacking the knight. Black has no choice. He must accept the pawn sacrifice. So the queen captures on d4. But why did Geller sacrifice the pawn? Now we can see the idea. To bring another piece, the last piece, which isn't doing anything, into the attack with a tempo. Bishop b2. So occupying the long diagonal with a tempo, attacking the queen, and after she retreats, the g7 pawn would fall. And after that, the rook on h8 would fall under attack. So what should black do? He captures another pawn. Queen takes a4. Now Geller should have captured on g7 right away, after which he would have an absolutely winning position, but instead he plays rook e4 with a tempo. So he thinks that the g7 pawn is doomed anyways, so before capturing it, he wants to ensure the g4 square for his queen. So by playing rook e4, Geller kicks the black queen out of the 4th rank, and later in the game the white queen can invade the g4 square, and we will see why it's so important. However, rook e4 by Geller was a mistake, because black could have played queen a5, a very strong move, attacking the knight. White, in order to regain the material, must capture on g7, but this time black castles queenside with the double attack, attacking the rook and also attacking the knight for the 2nd time. So black survives. But black didn't exploit this chance, and instead of queen a5, he plays queen a2, which was a mistake. So now Geller captures on g7, attacking the rook. Black castles queenside, attacking the white rook, and rook b3. Another strong move by Geller. The rook cuts the black queen away, cuts the black queen from the rest of the black army. So the black queen is out of play. And besides the threat of bishop takes h8, white is also threatening rook c4, attacking the knight and pinning the knight. Let's say if black plays knight f6, defending his rook and attacking the white rook, then white can play rook c4, attacking the knight, and what can black do now? If he defends the knight with the rook, now that the d8 rook doesn't defend the h8 rook, white can simply capture, and he's up material and his attack continues. And if instead of rook d6, black defends the knight with the king, then white can attack the knight for the second time, threatening to capture it, and again, if black plays rook d6, which is the only way to defend the knight, then white captures the whole rook. For this reason, after rook b3, black plays bishop f6, defending his h8 rook. And now we can see why it was so important to ensure the g4 square for the white queen. Geller invades this square with a check. So what should black do? He has only two moves actually. Rook d7 is the first move, and in this case the rook has moved away from d8. It isn't defending the knight, so white can capture, and after black recaptures, the knight falls too. For this reason, instead of rook d7, black plays king c7. But now queen f4 check, also attacking the bishop for the second time. So if rook d6, also defending the bishop, then rook d3 is possible, attacking the pinned rook for the second time, and there is no way to defend it. For this reason, after queen f4 check, the king returns to c8. But now Geller captures the piece, getting back the material, all the material he sacrificed. Knight takes f6, queen takes f6, threatening not just to capture the piece, but to checkmate right away after queen takes c6. That's why queen takes c2, defending the knight, and also setting a trap. So what should white do? The most natural looking move is rook c4, which at first sight wins right away, attacking the queen. The knight is defending the rook and also attacking the knight for the second time. But rook c4 would have been a terrible blunder because black would have simply captured the rook. White has the back rank issues. He cannot capture the queen because of checkmate in 1. But of course Geller notices that, and instead of rook c4, he makes another brilliant move. After black captures on c2, Geller, instead of rook c4, he makes another brilliant move, queen f5 check, also creating an x-ray. And no matter what black does, he loses the queen. If king c7, then rook e7 with the rook e7 check with the discovered attack, black is losing the queen. And if rook d7, then rook e8 check, again with the discovered attack, white is winning the queen. For this reason, after queen f5 check, Dreev resigned. And now you can watch the game we mentioned earlier, where Geller comes up with a fantastic queen sacrifice. Or if you watched it last week, I recommend watching how Mark Taimanov seemed possessed by Morphy's spirit. But first, I'd be grateful if you like this video and subscribe, as it's really helpful for the channel growth.